I don't even know how to start this, so I'm just going to jump in. My name is Sarah, I'm 30 years old, and 2 months ago I destroyed 3 families with a $79 DNA test kit I bought on Black Friday. I'm not exaggerating. 3 entire families. And I didn't even mean to. This is going to be long because there's so much to unpack, and honestly, writing it all out is the only thing keeping me sane right now. My therapist suggested I find an outlet for processing everything, and since I can't exactly post this on Facebook where my entire family would see it, Reddit seems like the safest option. Let me give you some background. I grew up in a pretty typical middle-class family in suburban Michigan. My parents, Robert and Linda, have been married for 35 years. I have one younger brother, Jake, who's 27. We had the standard childhood soccer games, family vacations to Disney World, Sunday dinners at Grandma's house, the whole Norman Rockwell experience. My dad's brother, my Uncle Tom, lives about 20 minutes away with his wife, my Aunt Carol, and their 2 kids, my cousins Emma, 28, and David, 25. Our families have always been close. Every Thanksgiving, Christmas, and 4th of July, we'd all get together. Uncle Tom was always the fun uncle, the one who'd sneak us extra dessert and let us stay up late watching movies when we'd sleep over. I look a lot like my dad. Or at least, that's what everyone always told me. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same tall build. Jake looks more like my mom, blonde, shorter, stockier. No one ever questioned it. Why would they? Here's where I made my first mistake. Those DNA ancestry kits were on sale before Christmas. You know, the ones they tell you your ethnic background, connect you with distant relatives, all that stuff. My best friend Hannah had done one and wouldn't shut up about discovering she was 3% Scandinavian. It seemed fun and harmless. I bought kits for myself, my parents, and Jake as Christmas gifts. My mom thought it was a cute idea. My dad seemed less enthusiastic but went along with it to make me happy. We all spit in our tubes on Christmas morning, laughed about how weird it was, and mailed them off. I completely forgot about it until mid-February when I got an email saying my results were ready. I logged in during my lunch break at work. I'm a marketing coordinator at a small firm, and it was a slow day, so I figured I'd kill some time seeing what percentage Irish I was or whatever. The ethnicity breakdown was interesting but not surprising, mostly British and Irish, some German, a bit of Scandinavian. Cool. Then I clicked on the DNA relatives section. The site shows you people who share DNA with you and estimates how you're related. At the top of my list was someone labeled as Jake C with the relationship listed as close family, full sibling. That tracked Jake had obviously gotten his results too. But the second person on my list made my stomach drop. Robert C, close family, first cousin. First cousin? That couldn't be right. Robert was my dad's name. Why would it say first cousin? I checked Jake's profile. It correctly identified my dad as his parent. But on my profile, my dad was listed as a first cousin, which meant we only shared about 12.5% of our DNA instead of the 50% a parent-child relationship would show. I sat at my desk staring at my phone, my heart pounding. This had to be a mistake. A glitch in the system. Maybe the samples got mixed up. I called the DNA company's customer service line. After waiting on hold for 20 minutes, I explained the situation to a representative. "Let me look into this for you," she said. I could hear typing. "Okay, I'm seeing your account. You uploaded your sample on December 27th, and it was processed on January 18th with no flags for contamination or errors. The results showing Robert C as a first cousin are based on the DNA markers analyzed. But he's my dad. He has to be my dad." There was a pause. "Ma'am, I'm not a genetic counselor, but based on the DNA shared between your profiles, Robert C is your first cousin, not your parent. I'd recommend speaking with a genetic counselor or your family about this." I hung up feeling like I was going to throw up. This couldn't be happening. There had to be an explanation. I called my mom. She was at work, so she couldn't talk long, but I told her there was something weird with my DNA results. "What kind of weird?" she asked. "It's saying Dad isn't, it's saying the relationship is wrong. Can we talk when you get home?" I heard something in her voice change. Just a slight shift, but I knew my mom. "Sure, honey. I'll be home around 6. I couldn't focus on work for the rest of the day. I kept refreshing my results, hoping they'd change. They didn't. I drove to my parents' house straight from work. My dad wasn't home yet, he usually worked until 7, so it was just my mom and me. She was in the kitchen making dinner, and she had this expression on her face that I'd never seen before. Not quite guilt, not quite fear. Something in between. "Mom, I need you to look at something." I showed her my phone with the DNA results. She barely glanced at it before turning back to the stove. "Mom, I need you to understand something," she said quietly, still not looking at me. "Your father Robert is your father in every way that matters. He raised you. He loves you. He's been there for every moment of your life." The kitchen tilted. "What are you saying?" She turned off the stove and finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. "I'm saying that biology isn't everything." "Mom. Who is my biological father?" She sat down at the kitchen table, and I sat across from her. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, "Tom." I must have misheard. "Tom who?" "Your Uncle Tom." The world stopped. Just completely stopped. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what she'd just said. "That's not funny, Mom." "I'm not joking, Sarah. Tom is your biological father." I stood up so fast my chair fell over. "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" My mom started crying. "It was one time. One mistake. Robert and I were going through a rough patch. We'd been trying to have a baby for 3 years with no success. We were fighting all the time. I was devastated and angry, and Tom was there, and he'd been drinking, and it just happened." "It just happened? You slept with Dad's brother?" "I know how it sounds. I know. But you have to understand, it was the worst mistake of my life. I told Robert immediately. We almost got divorced. We went to counseling. We worked through it. And then I found out I was pregnant with you." My brain couldn't keep up. Does Robert know? That I'm not his?" "Yes. We did a paternity test when you were born. He knows." "Does Uncle Tom know?" She nodded, crying harder now. "Tom knows. Carol knows. We all agreed that we'd never tell you. That Robert would be your father, and Tom would be your uncle, and that would be that. It was supposed to stay buried." "Supposed to stay buried? You've been lying to me for 30 years. We were protecting you. From what? The truth? From knowing who I actually am." The front door opened. My dad Robert came in, saw us in the kitchen, and immediately knew something was catastrophically wrong. "What's going on?" I turned to him. This man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd scared away my high school boyfriends, who'd walked me down the aisle at my wedding last year. This man who apparently wasn't my father. "Did you know?" I asked. "All this time, did you know?" He looked at my mom, then back at me. "Sarah. Did you know?" "Yes. I knew." I grabbed my keys and walked out. Both of them were calling after me, but I couldn't be in that house for another second. I got in my car and just drove. I ended up at Hannah's apartment, sobbing so hard I could barely explain what happened. She held me while I fell apart. "Oh my God. Oh my God, Sarah." I stayed at Hannah's that night. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts from my parents, from Robert and Linda, I guess I should say now. I couldn't answer them. I couldn't talk to anyone. The next day, I called in sick to work. I couldn't imagine trying to act normal and professional when my entire life had just been revealed as a lie. Instead, I did what any rational person would do in this situation. I drove to my Uncle Tom's house at 9 a.m. Aunt Carol answered the door. The second she saw my face, she knew. "You found out?" "Did everyone know except me?" She stepped aside to let me in. Uncle Tom was in the kitchen. When he saw me, he stood up from the table, and I saw it. For the first time, I really saw it. The exact same nose. The same jawline. The same way we both tilt our heads when we're thinking. How had I never noticed? "Sarah," he started. "Are you my father?" He looked at Carol, then back at me. "Biologically, yes. And you just, what? Pretended to be my uncle my whole life? Watched Robert raise your kid and said nothing? It was more complicated than that. Then uncomplicated for me. We sat down, all three of us, and they told me everything. The affair, it really was just one night, apparently, during a particularly bad fight between Robert and Linda. The guilt. The confession. The family implosion that almost happened. The decision they all made together to keep it secret. Your dad, Robert, he's a better man than me, Tom said. He could have walked away. He should have walked away. But he loved Linda, and when you were born, he loved you. He chose to be your father. But you're my father. In biology only. Robert's your dad, Sarah. I've never seen it any other way. That wasn't your choice to make. You should have told me. Carol spoke up. We thought about it. Especially when you got older. But the longer we waited, the harder it got. And you were happy. You had a good childhood. We didn't want to ruin that. So you waited for a $79 DNA kit to do it instead. I left their house feeling worse than when I'd arrived. I went home to my own apartment. I'd gotten married last year to my husband, Mark, and we had a small one-bedroom in Detroit. Mark was at work, so I had the place to myself to completely fall apart. When Mark got home that evening, I told him everything. He was absolutely floored. Jesus Christ, Sarah. This is... I don't even know what to say. Join the club. What are you going to do? I have no fucking idea. Over the next few days, things spiraled. I finally answered some of my parents' calls, brief, painful conversations where they begged me to come talk to them. I wasn't ready. I reached out to Jake to see if he knew. He didn't. I had to tell my little brother that we were half-siblings, not full siblings, and that our uncle was actually my father. He took it about as well as I did, which is to say, not well at all. Then I made a decision that I'm still not sure was the right one. I told my cousins. Emma and David deserved to know, right? I mean, they weren't actually my cousins. Emma was my half-sister. David was my half-brother. They had a right to know. I met Emma for coffee. She could tell something was wrong immediately. Okay, you're freaking me out. What's going on? I took a DNA test, and I need to tell you something about your dad. I watched her face change as I explained everything. Shock, disbelief, anger, confusion, it all played out in real time. You're saying my dad cheated on my mom with Aunt Linda? Yes. And you're actually my half-sister? Yes. She stood up. I need to talk to my parents. Emma confronted Tom and Carol that night. From what I heard later, it was brutal. Emma was devastated. David was furious. They felt betrayed by their parents' lies too. Carol apparently broke down crying, saying she'd forgiven Tom years ago and that bringing it up now would only cause pain. But the pain was already there. The secret was out. Then things got even messy. My grandma Robert and Tom's mother somehow found out. I'm still not entirely sure who told her, but she called me sobbing. Sarah, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. You knew too. Your grandfather and I figured it out when you were a baby. You look so much like Tom. We confronted them, and they told us the truth. They begged us not to say anything. So my grandparents had known too. This secret had been kept by an entire generation of my family. Family gatherings, obviously, became impossible. Thanksgiving had been at my parents' house for as long as I could remember, but there was no way that was happening now. Christmas came and went with me, Mark, and Jake having dinner alone at our apartment. No extended family. No traditions. Just the three of us trying to pretend everything was fine. My relationship with everyone was different now. I couldn't look at Robert the same way. This man had raised me as his own, knowing I wasn't biologically his, never treating me any differently than he treated Jake. That's incredibly noble. But he'd also lied to me my entire life. Both things could be true. Linda had betrayed her husband, slept with his brother, and then convinced everyone to hide the truth from me for 30 years. I was furious with her. But I also saw how much pain she was in, how much she regretted her choices. Tom had fathered a child and then stepped back to let his brother raise her. He'd watched me grow up from the sidelines, always the fun uncle, never the dad. I couldn't imagine how that must have felt for him. But again, he'd chosen the light too. And Carol, she'd stayed married to a man who'd cheated on her, raised her kids alongside his affair child, and smiled at family dinners while keeping this massive secret. I almost respected her for it. In a weird way. Everyone had their reasons. Everyone thought they were doing the right thing. But the result was that I didn't know who I was anymore. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma. She helped me understand that this wasn't about me being a bad person or unlovable. It was about adults making complicated choices in difficult situations and the unintended consequences of those choices. You're allowed to be angry, she told me. You're allowed to grieve the family you thought you had. But you also get to decide what comes next. What came next took time to figure out. I cut contact with almost everyone for about a month. I needed space to process without everyone's emotions and opinions flooding in. Mark was amazing through all of this, just being there and letting me feel whatever I needed to feel. Eventually, I reached out to Robert. We met for dinner at a quiet restaurant. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," were the first words out of his mouth. "I'm sorry we lied to you. I'm sorry you found out the way you did. I'm sorry for all of it. Why did you stay? Why did you raise me?" He looked me straight in the eye. "Because you were mine the moment you were born. Biology doesn't change that. I held you in the hospital, I watched you take your first steps, I was there for every moment. You're my daughter. You've always been my daughter." I started crying. "I don't know how to feel about any of this." "You don't have to know right now. Take all the time you need." We talked for 2 hours. He explained his side of the story, the betrayal he'd felt, the choice he'd made to forgive Linda, the decision to keep the secret. He said his only regret was not telling me sooner. We kept thinking, when she's older, we'll tell her. But you kept getting older, and the secret kept getting deeper. At some point, it felt like telling you would only cause pain for no reason. You had a good life. You were happy. We convinced ourselves that was enough. But I had a right to know. You did. You absolutely did. And we were wrong to keep it from you. That conversation was the beginning of rebuilding our relationship. It's still not back to what it was. I don't know if it ever will be, but it's something. I had a similar conversation with Linda. That one was harder. I was angrier with her, for the affair and for the lifetime of lies. But she owned it all. She didn't make excuses or try to justify what she'd done. She just apologized and said she understood if I never forgave her. Tom was the weirdest one. How do you build a father-daughter relationship at 30 years old with someone you've known your whole life as your uncle? We've had coffee a few times. It's awkward as hell. He asks about my life like he's trying to fill in gaps he doesn't actually have. He was there for everything already, just in a different capacity. Emma and David have been dealing with their own fallout. Emma's relationship with Tom is strained. She feels like she can't trust him anymore. David won't speak to him at all. Carol is caught in the middle, trying to keep her family together while also processing her own decades-old betrayal. My marriage to Mark has actually gotten stronger through all this. He's been my rock, and seeing how he shows up for me even when everything is a disaster has made me love him even more. We've talked about having kids soon. And I've become obsessed with the idea that my children will know the truth from the beginning. No secrets. No lies. Just honesty, even when it's hard. The DNA test that started all this? I wish I'd never taken it. But also, I'm glad I did. Living a lie, even a comfortable one, wasn't sustainable. The truth had to come out eventually. Better now than at someone's funeral or on their deathbed. I've had to redefine what family means to me. Robert is still my dad, maybe even more so now that I understand the choice he made to be my father. Tom is. I don't know what Tom is yet. My biological father, who's also been my uncle my whole life. We're figuring it out. Jake has been amazing. He was just as blindsided as I was, but he's never once made me feel like we're less than full siblings. "You're my sister," he said. That's it. That's all that matters. Here's where things stand now, about 2 months after the initial discovery. Robert and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. We have dinner once a week, just the two of us, and we're learning to be honest with each other in ways we never were before. Linda and I are in a more fragile place. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive her, but I'm trying to understand. My therapist keeps reminding me that people are complex and that someone can make terrible choices and still be a good person overall. Tom and I are, something. Not quite father-daughter, not quite uncle-niece, something in between that doesn't have a name yet. We're taking it slow. Carol and I have actually gotten closer. She's apologized for her part in the secret, and I've realized that she was a victim in this too. Her husband cheated on her, and then she had to watch the product of that affair grow up at family dinners. That's its own kind of hell. Emma and I are figuring out how to be half-sisters instead of cousins. It's weird, but also kind of nice. We've always been close, and now we have an excuse to be even closer. David is still processing. He's the youngest and I think the most hurt by all of this. He needs time, and I respect that. Jake remains the best brother, sorry, half-brother a girl could ask for. And Mark? Mark is a saint who deserves an award for dealing with this circus. As for my extended family, things are fractured. Some relatives have taken sides. Some think I should have kept my mouth shut once I found out. Some think the secret should have been revealed years ago. Family gatherings are probably never going to be the same, and I've made peace with that. Grandma has been trying to play peacemaker, inviting small groups over for dinner and trying to rebuild bridges. It's slow going. I've learned a lot through this experience. Secrets have a shelf life. They don't stay buried forever. DNA doesn't define family, but lying about DNA can destroy it. People make terrible decisions for what they think are good reasons. Forgiveness is a process, not a destination. Therapy is expensive but worth every penny. Those DNA test kits should come with a warning label, may destroy your entire understanding of your family structure. I still have hard days. Days where I'm angry at everyone and everything. Days where I mourn the family I thought I had. Days where I wonder who I would have been if I'd known the truth from the beginning. But I also have good days. Days where I appreciate Robert's choice to be my dad even more deeply. Days where I feel like I'm building something new and honest with my family. Days where I'm grateful the lies are finally over. Someone asked me recently if I regretted taking the DNA test. The truth is, I don't know. My life was simpler before. My family was intact. I was happy in my ignorance. But I also wasn't living in reality. And there's something to be said for knowing the truth, even when the truth is painful. So no, I don't regret it. I regret the lie that made the truth so explosive. I regret that I wasn't trusted with my own story. But I don't regret finally knowing who I am. I'm Sarah. I'm 30 years old. I'm a marketing coordinator, a wife, a daughter, a half-sister again, a granddaughter, and apparently the product of a 30-year-old family secret that exploded on a random Tuesday in February. And I'm still figuring out what all of that means.